Golden Axe 2 is an arcade-like side-scrolling beat-em-up game that ironically was never released on arcade machines. It was an exclusive Sega Genesis hack-and-slash romp that is made most fun with a co-op partner. Players can choose one of 3 fighters, including a helmet-sporting, axe-wielding, beard-waving dwarf, a long-haired, ab-chiseled, sword-wielding, underwear-sporting barbarian, or a sexy swimsuit-wearing, two-handed, sword-wielding, long-legged, and kicking warrior. The game features large sprites, and while sometimes stiff and repetitive, some fun enemies to smash. Players can also ride various large lizards and swat enemies with their tail, as well as use magic attacks to wipe out enemies in desperate situations. For a light experience, a short experience, and a fun co-op experience for the Sega Genesis, it's hard to do better than Golden Axe 2 for a fun afternoon.
Power Stone by Capcom was released for the Dreamcast in '99. The game used innovative strategies, encouraging players to search the arena for 3 stones that would equip them with super special attacks. Graphics for the time were beautiful, with 3D arenas and fast and fluid animation. Power Stone's levels contained items like chairs, tables, and rocks, all of which could be used to injure your opponent, but where the game really shined was in multiplayer. Whereas the one-player mode was insanely difficult, 4-player Power Stone was pure fun. Players formed and broke alliances throughout each round in order to prevent others from obtaining those 3 stones while simultaneously trying to snag them yourself.
Afterburner. Who can forget the Top Gun craze of the mid-'80s? Everyone was singing Kenny Loggins, playing shirtless volleyball, and the F-14 Tomcat became a household name. And of course the video game industry took notice of this phenomenon and quickly satisfied the cravings of arcade dwellers everywhere with Afterburner. There were 2 arcade versions, the upright cabinet and the totally awesome cockpit version with bone-rattling stereo sound and a rotating cockpit that greatly enhanced the feeling of flight. Whichever version you played, it was nothing short of exhilarating, grabbing the flight stick, blasting waves of enemies with your Vulcan gun, or locking on a target with a heat-seeking missile. There were many ports to different consoles over the years, but for me, nothing could top the arcade version.
Fantasy Zone, a whimsical and colorful side-scrolling shooter building on classic games like Defender and Chopper Command. You play as a sentient spaceship named Opa Opa, which some say is Sega's first mascot. Sorry, Sonic. The game started off in arcades, but then was brought to other consoles, but probably is best known on the Sega Master System. Not only do you fight the normal enemy characters, but you can't progress in each stage until you destroy a set number of bases, then of course, a big boss battle, all while caught up in the game's amazing soundtrack and happy colorful backgrounds. It's no surprise that this shoot-'em-up, or cute-'em-up, that looks this good and plays so well for an early game is in this top 50. Plus, if it's good enough to be Mighty Q Dog's logo and theme, then it's good enough for us.
Sonic & Knuckles is the 5th title in the main series of the Sonic franchise. Although this game was originally planned to be included content with Sonic 3, the project was split in half due to time constraints and manufacturing costs of additional cartridge memory. Similar gameplay to its preceding releases, this cartridge brings along an awesome feature called Lock-On Technology, which allows combining elements within the previous 2 Sonic platforming-based releases. Examples include Knuckles being a playable character in Sonic 2 and 3, or the ability to save your progress in Sonic & Knuckles when a Sonic 3 cartridge is attached, has been completed, and player is continuing campaign into the final game. Sonic & Knuckles is a strong finish to what ended up being the last Sonic title produced for standalone Genesis Mega Drive hardware.
Number 35.
Dune, The Battle for Arrakis, was ported to the Genesis in 1993 from Dune 2, released for DOS. The developer, Westwood Studios, would go on to make the Command & Conquer series, which takes inspiration from this game. It could even be said the huge success of Dune 2 paved the way for other notable real-time strategy games that followed, like Warcraft and StarCraft. In this one, players choose one of 3 factions that set out to the planet of Arrakis, employ for harvesting as much spice as possible while engaging in combat with other enemy factions and dodging huge, terrifying sandworms. This was an ambitious port for consoles and was adapted quite nicely for gamepad control. Few games are as influential to a genre as this one, with the groundwork for concepts like fog of war exploration, cursor-based micromanagement, and resource gathering methods all becoming hallmarks for real-time strategy to this day. The soundtrack is enjoyable, but can become quite repetitious over long play periods, but long play periods are required for taking on this spicy, addictive 16-bit classic.
Sonic CD hit the Genesis add-on console during last quarter of 1993 across all regions. Not only is this a beloved release in the franchise, held in the utmost highest regard by longtime fans, this iteration changes up the traditional method of traversing through zones. Sonic CD implemented a time travel system, enabling players to move between different periods of past, present, good, and bad futures within each level. This provided an immense level of replayability, not typically seen in this genre, as the time travel element would change stage graphics, music, platform positions, enemies, and obstacles. Add in beautiful animated cutscenes and two completely different soundtracks between the North American market and the rest of the globe. Sonic CD is a difficult challenge, but a must-own for any SEGA collector.
Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes for the Dreamcast. First and foremost, I have to open by saying that during the 6th generation of consoles, my favorite was easily the PlayStation 2. But whenever I go to my uncle's house, I would play the Dreamcast any chance I could get. On top of that, the fighting genre has always been a huge part of my gaming life. So when the Dreamcast got MVC2, I was like, okay, cool, but when's the PS2 port coming? I had to wait 3 freaking years to get the PS2 version of this game, and when I got it, it was inferior. The Dreamcast version was a near-perfect arcade port of the game, and it was revolutionary at the time. When it comes to fighting games, I'm not even that crazy about the MVC series, but Marvel vs. Capcom 2 will always stand amongst the greats. So of course, when I look back and think about the greatest games to ever appear on SEGA hardware, this game comes to mind. When MVC2 came out for the Dreamcast, it was the first time in my life that I was jealous of not owning a SEGA console.
Mortal Kombat is the smash arcade hit of 1992. In Mortal Kombat, you choose one of the 7 playable characters and fight your way through a series of challengers, with your ultimate goal being the defeat of the evil Shang Tsung and his monstrous henchman Goro. Mortal Kombat was so popular it was ported to every game system of the time, but it's the Sega Genesis port that really shines because all the blood, gore, and fatalities found in the arcade version were preserved in the Genesis version, provided you knew the code. Once you heard "finish him," it was time to perform your fatality move. No wonder there is now an ESRB video game rating system.
Number 31.
Phantasy Star IV. Phantasy Star IV for the Sega Genesis is the epic finale of the saga that began 2,000 years earlier in the first Phantasy Star. The game offers up a compelling ending to the single-player RPG series with a large cast of characters, numerous side quests, and multiple planets to explore. This time you take on the role of a young hunter named Chaz, whose first mission is to investigate a monster infestation at the university. But things quickly escalate, and soon Chaz and his party are faced with eliminating once and for all the evil force that's been plaguing the Algol star system for millennia. Like previous entries, the world of Phantasy Star IV is a combination of science fiction and fantasy, including space travel and magic spells, and androids working alongside sorcerers. This entry also implements the most sophisticated battle system seen in the series, offering up 5-player parties, skills, magic, and even a macro programming system used for pulling off combination attacks. Phantasy Star IV is without a doubt the best RPG on the Sega Genesis and should not be missed.